It's day 106 for these two vines, and as you know, the vine that was once growing slower is on this side. The one that was growing faster is on this side. These old leaves are damaged. They were tough as leather, and they're going to go pretty soon. So you can see that one's going. And these are all damaged as well. I can get a close-up for you to see. They're mottled. And at that point, it just doesn't matter if you fertilize enough or not later on. For vines like this, leaves are very dispensable. So if anything went wrong in the leaf development, they're just going to be discarded. This is a little offshoot with the inflorescence. It's got a little leaf there, but that wasn't doing too well either. So, you know, I can cut stuff like that off and it won't be a loss at all. So, you know, these leaves, if you brush past the edges, they're rough and leathery, basically like very hard construction paper. And as you can see, I had that problem early on with just excessive flowering. So I've made all the shoots point this way counterclockwise. And, you know, I just haven't had any more flowering recently. It's been quite amazing what happened since I fertilized twice with nitrogen-rich Miracle-Gro. So if we look over here, you know, the stuff on the outside isn't going to grow as well as the stuff on the inside. Here's a full look. There's just a lot of new lush foliage. If you look back at here, you know, these leaves are all damaged. They're not going to grow anymore. And then there are some parts where, you know, the leaves didn't do too well due to malnutrition in the soil earlier on. So before I fertilized, the plants were really struggling. But now, as you can see, the leaves are really green. And if you back up, I've got a verdant carpet of greenery. So that looks pretty good these days. And I'll show you some other angles later. But, you know, I haven't had any flowering at all for the last week or so. So this just mirrors what I did last year when I fertilized twice with high nitrogen content Miracle-Gro. I just stopped the flowering, and leaf growth was very explosive. And later on, when I flushed the soil to get rid of the excess fertilizer, I had an explosion of flowering again, which led to my last year's harvest. So this vine that was once growing faster is on the outside of the table, as you can see, in relation to the lights. These are each just these 7.5 watt LED bulbs that use very little electricity. They give off 500 lumens of mostly the right light, the right type of blue wavelength light that we're looking for. And as you can see, this belongs to the inner vine, which I was once calling vine 2. It has the biggest leaves now. These leaves are all new and healthy. And if you brush against these, you know, they're nice and supple. They're verdant green, indicating that sufficient nutrition was absorbed during their making. These two kind of overlap. These were actually the two biggest leaves post-fertilization. But yeah, these leaves they're not huge. They're not like they were in the beginning of the series. But if you compare it to this middle zone where there's a lot of sickly or even the early leaves that remain, I mean, they're even bigger than most of those. So all those original really big leaves are just gone. And I have some offshoots coming in here. So now I have a big problem. I'm going to run out of space on this table. So I'm going to have to make a very tough decision to cut one of these vines. And it's going to be the outer vine because it's not doing as well. It's probably not doing as well just due to the artificial positioning relative to these lights. So, you know, the outer vine with its offshoots, you know, what I was once calling vine 1 is growing faster in the beginning of the series due to better positioning. Now it has inferior positioning, and the leaves just aren't as robust as stuff you see here. So these offshoots, almost all of them belong to the inner vine, and they're just growing like crazy. So I'm just gonna trim the outer vine, and it's really tough to make a decision like this and throw away something that's been growing for you for so long, but I'm gonna run out of space on this table. If I get rid of that outer vine, I can make a loop and come out to the outside when I make one revolution and go like that. You know, I'd estimate that it would be an additional 3 meters, like 2 loops around this. You know, that could easily be 5 or 6 meters. When you compare that to what I had on my balcony last year, that's more than enough. Given that Charentais melons are not as big as honeydew melons from the supermarket, I think I won't even need that much growth, but I think conditions are pretty optimal, so it wouldn't hurt to let the vine grow for a long time and make a whole revolution around this again.
Let's have another moment to look at this before I make the cut on vine 1, the outer vine.
I just did the unthinkable. I cut this vine 1, the outer one, and I'm going to remove it and show you what it looks like now, but I tried to scoop away some sand and cut deeper so I wouldn't have the stump protruding out. It's just going to rot and eventually soften up and give room for more roots for this vine. Okay, so I did the deed, and this table just looks very barren compared to before. The one vine that's left, the inner one, is very healthy looking. You know, there's a slight repositioning of everything, but basically these leaves will reorient themselves. There's actually 4 offshoots, so essentially 5 vines to the uninitiated eye, but it all originates from the same one. So you can see the dark ages here where the leaves just can't recover. They won't grow if they've encountered problems. You know, these ones are small, hard, leathery, they're mottled, and I removed all the flowers, the hundreds and hundreds of dead flowers. So yeah, these are all problem leaves from times past which were bad, and these face away from the light source here, but that hardly matters because these things are on their last days anyway. So I expect all these smaller leaves that are unproductive and won't grow anymore to basically shed at some point. So when the vines all make a revolution around this table, yeah, they can occupy this new niche and get the light from this lamp. So yeah, here's the innermost offshoot. You know, at one point it was in dire straits, and it connects to there, you know, to there. So then there's other ones that come from very thin origins. So it's funny how these vines grow. You know, if they encounter bad times, the stem is very thin in those places, but it gets thicker and more robust as you go on. And let's see, this is, you know, a bigger offshoot. We're going from big to small as we go inside in circles of this table. So, you know, that ends up being pretty good, having really nice leaves. And this is probably the oldest offshoot. Actually originates from kind of lower. So this one is doing really well compared to the other ones. I think it's just older, and you know, I can reposition the lights a little bit, but you know, this is the original vine, and it ran into tough times here, but as you can see over there, that's what I consider to be the original shoot apical meristem. So these leaves will reorient themselves by tomorrow, or probably just within a few hours, and then I'll go from there. So there's a lot more space now. There's less competition in the soil. And I estimate this will take another few weeks to grow into the state at which I deem it'll be ready for melon growth and female flowering.